Today I'll quickly update you on my FORMD build, including the good, bad, and the ugly. It's been just over a week and things have already changed. One of the biggest changes is the longer and sturdier standoffs, switched to the Thermalright XP90X53 full copper, and I installed a newer version V2 3D print fan shroud from AGA with some mixed results. And unfortunately my T1 Ryzen cable bit the dust, well, mostly. To expand the airflow on the RTX 5080 Founders Edition card inside the T1, I installed the Fan Shroud, which is genuinely a game changer in terms of design and function. Designed by the fellow small form factor enthusiast and content creator AGA. The Shroud is somewhat limited to certain motherboards and coolers that share the same dimensions as the Thermalright AXP90X47, a super popular low-profile air cooler. In his initial video, he saw some modest thermal improvements when testing the Shroud with the 7950X3D and the RTX 4090. However, this shroud isn't technically compatible with my setup with the ASUS Strix X670EI, so I had to make some modifications by removing parts of the scoop and structural support. After providing a few motherboard measurements, it got right to work to revise the shroud with the goal of accommodating more motherboards. But is it worth it? I ran some tests and it's a mixed bag. The original shroud was designed with the RTX 40 series in mind, but as we all know, the 50 series cards have a vastly different cooling system. With the Ryzen 7 9800X3D and the 5080 Founders Edition, I ran Cyberpunk 2077 and 4K with DLSS 4 and the performance preset no frame gen. These tests were performed on the X47 full copper between stock setup with no shroud, version 1 and the newer version 2. We see small but modest reduction in temperature with the version 2 by 4 degrees over stock and 3 degrees over the original. I have a thermal sensor taped to the motherboard backplate, and this is basically to see how much the flow-through design on the 5080 affects the rear M.2 storage temperatures. The newer version 2 has a slightly over the original, and stock 47 degrees max is a good result. GPU temperatures are not affected at all in this test, 64s across the board. With a plus 450 MHz overclock on the core memory, we see some strange results. The original shroud is performing 2 degrees warmer than the V2 and stock. This could be due to the V2 having much thinner structural support, less material to block airflow. The same behavior on the GPU test, 2 degrees warmer for the original. Another odd result with both shrouds performing worse in this overclocked Cyberpunk environment. I ran these tests twice and managed to keep the ambient temperature within 0.8 degrees Celsius for accurate results. In Cinebench R24 on the multi-core test, the CPU is well hot. This cooler isn't really designed to handle a fully loaded 120 watt TDP chip, so it's 96s across the board. In this scenario, the motherboard backplate sensor favored both shrouds, a really good environment for M.2. Very mixed results. However, one thing is clear, the version 2 was on top more often, especially highlighted during gaming with a 4-degree reduction in Cyberpunk. So, is it worth it? Yes and no. If you want to squeeze all the performance out of your system, then the V2 shroud is a good idea. It offers some quality of life improvements if thermals aren't enough. It looks really awesome and makes fan installation much easier rather than using the fan brackets. I swapped out the AXP90X47 full copper in exchange for a slightly bigger brother, the X53 full copper. By deducting 5mm from each standoff, the bigger cooler fits in without any turbulence or temperature penalties to the 5080. We see a further 1 to 3 degree improvement on the CPU across the board when gaming on Cyberpunk 2077. I'm really happy with the gaming and cooling performance on this system. Next, I'll swap out all the M3 standoffs. Originally, I used a mix of spare standoffs from the T1 build and these black nylon ones I got from Amazon. Overall, this setup worked fine, but the lack of support for the upside down 5080 made me very uneasy. The card wobbled more than usual, especially with no official travel kit released yet. I found these set of stainless standoffs and they work fantastic. There's still some wiggle on the GPU, but nothing compared to before. I picked these up from Amazon here in Canada, and I'll try to link an American version in the description. They look really awesome and come in very specific sizes all the way up to 35mm with screws, nuts, and washers. When the new travel kit releases, you will still need standoffs, so pick some of these up. Lastly, I managed to break my Ryzen cable. It was a prototype and basically allowed me to shift the 40 series travel kit up and down to provide me with more space for the 16-pin connection. Luckily, I had the original riser the case came with, but it's still a bummer. I cleaned up cable management a bit and replaced the white cables for the blue ultra soft cables from my DIY. I flipped the power supply back to pulling air from outside the case just to give me the cleanest thermal data possible. These are all the updates I have for now. Please follow me on Instagram and consider subscribing to the channel. I often post community polls on upcoming content and sometimes get your opinion on testing methodologies. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.